So in this tutorial, I will talk about the JavaScript basic. So JavaScript syntax is case sensitive. For example, foo is not the same as foo. So if you look at this one, this is a uppercase and this is small case. So these are not the same since JavaScript is case sensitive. And one more thing is statements are separated by a semicolon, and a semicolon is not mandatory after a statement if it is written on its own line. So let me open one more tab and try it out, and let's look at this. We'll have it somewhere over here and use an inspect. Okay, we'll have the console where you can write your JavaScript over here. So if you look at foo, if you write foo, let's say var foo, enter, and you can even declare it one more time, and foo. So this foo with the uppercase is not the same as foo in the lowercase. And you can, if you look at this, I place a semicolon over here. Let's okay, this is not working. Okay, fine. So this is a semicolon that separates a statement. Or if you place this, let's say if you have say var hello and you hit enter, and this is basically run a command prompt, but it's a kind of a command. But if you write a program in a file, then you can have it somewhere around here without having a semicolon. But best practices, always write a semicolon after the statement. That should be fine. Okay, and then let's look at what is a comment in the, how do you place comments in your JavaScript programs. And you can do that if you want a one-line comment, you can have a double slash, and a multi-line comments is starting with a slash and then asterisk and then close with asterisk and then slash. That's all. So how do you declare variables? So three kind of variable declarations in the modern JavaScript. This is the all school of doing declarations of JavaScript, just like I did over here, var foo. So you declare a variable using using a var keyword, and this optionally you can initialize it. For example, I can say var my var equal to some string. So this is let's say hello var, and that's it. So what's happening is unexpected identifier. So okay, this is a case sensitive, so we have to do like this, my var equal to hello var, and that's it. So you have a undefined, meaning that this statement does not produce anything, but if you look at what is the value in the my var, you can see that it is hello var. Next thing is you can do it with the let keyword. This is a very new it is new, that is by the ECMAC script 2015, that you can declare a block scope or local variable using the let keyword, and this is the same as the var, where you optionally initialize it to a value. And the last way of declaring a variable is you can use a constant, and in this case this is a read-only name constant. So while naming a variable, you have to follow some kind of rules, and these rules are let's say the name of the variable must start with a letter or an underscore or $sign, and the subsequent characters can also be digit, and as you know that JavaScript is case sensitive. For example, if a valid variable name are count and temp, then creates count 99 and underscore name. So these are all valid variable name. Okay, so how just like we see, you can do three declarations. You can declare variable like this, so using the keyword var. So var x is equal to 4, and then var can be used to declare both local and global variables. And you can use the keyword let or constant. That is, you can say let x is equal to 4, and this let can be used to declare a block scope local variable. You can also just assign a value to a variable, for example x is equal to 4, but this is highly not recommended. Okay, so now evaluating variables. A variable declared using var and let keyword with no assigned value specified has the value as undefined. As we see in here, we declare variable foo, and this is undefined. We also again declare with a small character that is also undefined. And let's look at this example where we declare var a is a variable using the keyword var, and console.log is this is an object, and this is a function within this object, and you can inside this you can pass a string, and you can concatenate the two maybe a variable and a string using the plus using the plus sign. So yeah, for example, here you say console.log, the value a is undefined. So let's look at the example here. Let me clear this out. Okay, CLS, no, okay, we can clear using this one. And let's say I declare a variable a, and I want to say console.log, and I'll type same thing as in the tutorial. The values of a is, and having a plus. Let me have some space over there. So the value of a is undefined. So this is just the debugger, so you need to read from here to here. So the value of a is undefined. And let's look at what is this. This is the console.log b, where b is somewhere not yet declared. It's not there yet. Let's look at that. So we have the same thing. We'll copy and paste this statement over there and paste it here, and let's say b. Okay, so we see that a reference error, that is b is not defined at this this location. So b is not yet defined. You need to define it before using it. So but what interesting to see is, suppose if you written this in a script file, that is in a script that is in a file, not in this kind of a console, kind of a terminal thing. You declare a variable over here, and then when you run this program, when you run this statement console.log, the value of b is b, still you are able to see that it is b is undefined and not this kind of error. So what is this? What is happening over here? This is what we call is a variable hoisting. That is, the variable is declared later on before it used. Still, you can use this in JavaScript. That is, the JavaScript engine can still able to see that b already declared somewhere in your program. That is just below the statement this b use, and still you are able to see that the value of b is undefined. So but not reference error. And let's see about C. We did not declare anywhere else down the line, and that's why we are seeing the reference error. And let's see this one. This is also undefined, and this is reference error. So one more thing to note down here is that if you are declaring using the let and the let keyword, that is the what we call the block scope local variable. If you declare it down the line just before you use it, you are seeing the reference error. And if you are declaring using the var keyword, then you are able to use it. The variable can do the hoisting, but with the let keyword you cannot do the variable hoisting. So this is a block scope declaration, and this is you can declare this as a global variable declaration. Okay, and okay, so how do we make use of the undefined? You can use the undefined to determine whether a variable has a value. For example, you declare a variable var input, and you can have an if statement saying that if the input is undefined, I'll execute this kind of a statement, that console.log input value undefined, else console.log input is that input. So you can drop this up and let's execute it in this thing, and the value input value is undefined. So when you execute this line, so input value is undefined, and if you modify this, to something, say hello, and input is hello. So we need to a little bit separate this kind of spacing in your program to have some kind of space over here. Now if you're using it in a Boolean context, so kindly note down what is a Boolean context here. That is, you use this undefined in a statement where you want to evaluate it as a Boolean, and in this case you place a not at the beginning, exclamatory mark, and this basically evaluate it to either true or false. So the undefined value behave as false. So this undefined is false. So if the input is false, then basically you put a not, then this statement will execute, and else this statement will execute. Again, the undefined in the numerical context, you if you have var a, this is already undefined, you consult the log, evaluate to none. So this is basically behaving the undefined value of a is behaving as none, or the undefined value converts to a none. So other example, when assigning a variable to a null, for example, variable a is equal to null, here a is basically 0. So if you say var a is equal to null, and by default a is 0, so if you console the log a into 10, then the a is 0. Now let's look at the variable scope. So we have two type of variable in most of the programming languages, and in JavaScript as well. You have the global variable and the local variable. So when you declare a variable outside of any function, it is called a global variable, and global variable is available to any other code in the current document. So if you want it to access anywhere in your web page, that is within the documents of your page, then you would like to declare the variable as a global variable. And global variable are in fact properties of the global object. Now in the browser, the global object is window. So let's look at that. Let's clear this out. So the let's say we have the window. So this is the object of your in the browser, and you can assign a variable. Say if you want it to have, say this is my variable, you can name it any variable, but it should follow the rules of the variable naming of the JavaScript convention. And you can say this hello, and now when you want to access it, you can simply have its window that my variable like this. And for a local variable, when you declare a variable within a function, that is within a function, it is called a local variable. Local variable is within a function scope. So if you have a function somewhere like this, this is your function, this is my function, and you are declaring it within this space, within this from the start of the curly brace to the end of the curly brace, and within this it is the function scope. Now before ECMA 2015, the variable doesn't have a block statement scope. That is, if you have a kind of statement like this, if true, and then you declare a variable inside this statement, inside the if statement, still you can access that variable x outside that block scope. But in 2015, introducing the ECMA script 2015, using the let keyword, you can use the let keyword. Let's say if true, let x equal to 5, and this is within the block scope. And when you do a console.log, you have a reference error. Constant. So constants are read-only declared with a keyword constant, and you can do that using constant. Let's say you want to declare the value of pi equal to 3.4. So you have to note that a constant cannot change value through assignment or be redeclared while the script is running. It must be initialized to a value. You cannot declare a constant with the same name as a function or variable in the same scope. Let's look at that. This is a function. Let's say f is a function and empty function, and you declare a constant f is equal to 5, and this will cause an error too, right? So if you say a function f is equal to function f is a function and you declare a constant g, a variable g, this you'll find it a problem, because you cannot have the same name, the constant cannot have the same name as the function. So in the case of object, the property of object assigning to a constant are not protected. So for example, if you declare a simple object, and let's say this is a constant object, this is my object, and an object is declared using the open curly bracket and close curly bracket, and you have what we call a key value pair. That is, this is the key, this is the value. Let me demonstrate that. Let's remove this thing, and let me declare constant my okay. What is happening? Oh, this should be somewhere down. Okay, so constant my object and open close, and let's say an object of type you define it basically a key value pair. So this is a name, say John. This is an object, so you can access an object using the dot name, right? So you have this is a name, and now with constant declaration you can still change the name. That is, the property of the object are not protected when you declare it, even if you declare a constant, but in case of object this property are not protected. So let's look at my some name. I can change it to John to Dio, so John Dio, and still if you look at the object you have this Dio, and let's look at the whole object, you have name is equal to Dio. So and also in the case of array, that is, if you declare an array, let's say this is array, you declare it using the square bracket, and inside this you have the HTML and CSS element of the array, and if you want to add new element into the array, my array, you can use the push function, and my method, the push, you add JavaScript, and when you lock it you will be able to find all the tree. So even if you declare with a constant, in the case of an object and array, the element or the attribute of the object are not protected by the constant keyword, similarly to the array type. And for more details you can go to this website. It is by Mozilla. All this material are being followed from there, and you can have a look at the basic concept of JavaScript out there. Okay, thank you so much.